Hi, I'm the Director for Common Knowledge Trust. We're a New Zealand registered charitable trust since 1996. In the early 1970s, I worked with hundreds of fathers and mothers, and we developed what is now known as Birthing Better Childbirth Preparation. It used to be called the Pink Kit. And what happened when we developed those skills was we began to realize that it was really important that all of us become skilled to birth our babies. The early 1970s was a time where Grantley, Dick Reed, Lamaze, and the Bradley method were very, very popular in the United States, Canada, and where I live now in New Zealand. As mentioned in the description, those three systems were developed in order for a group of women who wanted to have a natural birth, pain-free labor with no medical care to achieve those three goals. And that was the first oversight. The fact is that at that point, if we had been told, all of us, 100% of pregnant women are going to give birth, giving birth is an activity, doesn't matter where you birth, what you think about it, what happens to you, it's an activity that you're going to do, then we would not have the problems we have today, because we would now have three generations of women who thought it was normal and natural to learn skills in order to birth their baby. There wouldn't be the debate about whether you had a natural birth or a medical birth or a home birth or a hospital birth or an obstetrician or a midwife, or whether you were afraid of birth or whether you trusted birth. The fact is that we would have treated birth for what it is, which is an activity that 100% of pregnant women have to do, me included. I had to give birth. I gave birth more than once. Every time it was an activity I had to do. And it felt better to do that activity when I was skilled. And the better the skills were, the better I felt about the activity, regardless of where the birth occurred, who was present, or what happened, or the circumstances. But what happened back then, and this is history lessons, is that the birth advocates that advocated for skills then realized a generation later that the skills weren't working for enough people. Not enough women were achieving those three goals. Even those women who wanted those goals, much less the rest of the women who either didn't want them or there were no choices back then. So what happened was that skills were dismissed. And this was the first oversight. Skills should have been, back then, advocated for all births, but they were dismissed and replaced because the new birth advocates of the 1970s said, skills don't work. See, they don't work. Birth is natural and instinctive. Women just need choices. So what happens is that then the advocates of choices became the vocal proponents. And that was good. We needed choices. There was a childbirth trend in the 70s, which had very standardized medical care. We needed more choices. And choices were important. But the choices, the view of choices, was a spinoff from the view of skills achieving those three goals. So the people who advocated choices didn't advocate for women to choose more elective cesareans or more pain relief or more ultrasounds. They wanted women to choose less. They wanted women to be able to choose midwives, to choose a home birth, to say no to what was now known as interventions. And that hasn't worked. We're now almost 2 generations into that childbirth trend, and we're stuck. And what's happened is that the shame, blame, guilt has just exploded. Women are so angry. They feel so disappointed. There's so much birth trauma. Honestly, to tell you the truth, in my parents' generation and the eons before that, birth was just something that happened. There's a global truth. There's no way to know what your birth's going to be like. So as women, we feel out of control with that. We don't feel we can control something that we have no idea what's going to happen, even if it's our 10th birth. And so when skills first were developed by these three obstetricians, women started to think, oh, yes, we can do this. There was some sort of belief, which was inaccurate, that prior to medical care, traditional women knew how to birth. Traditional women don't know how to birth any more than midwives know how to birth. The fact is that birth is something that happens to us, and we feel that we lack control. So the first thing that people did was to say, if you want control, to achieve these three goals, then learn skills. And as I said, first oversight. So we do have control when we use skills, no matter how we birth. And the control isn't always about what's happening to us. It's how we are working through the activity of birthing our baby. So when we consciously breathe in and breathe out, when we consciously relax our body through this time frame of birthing our baby, we feel more in control of ourselves. And when we have a partner who can see and hear whether we're in control or whether we're feeling overwhelmed and then can help us right away, we feel more in control. That doesn't mean that we have necessarily a perfect birth or everything goes the way we want. It means that as the birth is unfolding, we do the activity in a skillful manner, and that gives us control. So because those three goals were attached to this early trend of skills and then dismissed as not being able to achieve those three goals, the birth advocates who wanted choice wanted women to choose less medical care, as though choosing birth could place birth as an event that we could plan via a birth plan. But that immediately didn't work. I mean, from the early 1980s, when that was advocated, women would have long lists of what they wanted and expected their birth providers to provide those things. And women didn't always know what they wanted. Birth was an unknown until it unfolded. So you would have women who changed their mind in the middle of the birth. Well, that's fine to change your mind in the middle of the birth, but it can confuse everybody, particularly if 6 months later the woman is angry that her initial choices weren't supported and those changes were made even though she wanted them. And there were too many choices. Birth professionals, partners, didn't have a clue what women really wanted. So we've discovered that choices didn't work. Many women didn't have choices. Many women wanted to choose more medical care. So choices weren't working. So we're stuck now, but we're not stuck. We have a window of opportunity to heal all of this by saying that birth is an activity. 100% of pregnant women are going to do this activity at the end of pregnancy, and everyone should be skilled. Now, fortunately, there are a lot of skills-based methods out there. What's important is that you learn, practice, and use skills. When you choose the skills-based method that you want to have, make certain that even if philosophically it targets a natural birth, pain-free labor with less medical care, that you continue to use those skills if those three goals are not being met. It's your baby's birth. You are working through the activity of birthing your baby. This is your baby's birth. We don't do this activity often in life. Don't waste it by mentally shutting down because birth doesn't unfold in the way that you envision, or it unfolds in unexpected ways. It will unfold in unexpected ways, and it doesn't often unfold in the way that you want. However, it is unfolding, and you are doing that activity one inhale at a time, one exhale at a time, one posture you take at a time, one position you're in at a time, one ability to choose in your mind how to apply the skills to the internal sensations you're feeling and to the external factors that are going on around you or to you. This is really important. And this is what's called a skills-based approach to childbirth. It honors choices. Choose whatever you want. If choices unfold the way you want them, yippee, use skills, because skills will enrich that birth experience. Choices are never about what you do on a moment-to-moment basis until we think of choice as I am choosing how I breathe in and I am choosing how I breathe out. So when you breathe in like this and you breathe out like, you actually are choosing that. If you lack skills, you can't choose to breathe like this. And you can't choose to breathe like this. It's hard work, particularly if the internal sensations are challenging or the external factors are challenging. But skilled women know that they have to discipline themselves to overcome their reactions to internal and external factors and discipline themselves to choose behaviors that show that they are coping and managing and staying on top of the internal and external factors. That's really, really important. So common knowledge trust is launching this new trend in childbirth. It's coupling skills to choice. It's healing those two oversights, but it's not placing any emphasis on the type of birth that you might choose or the type of birth that you will have. It is placing emphasis on all of us as women and men who are involved in birth to see this opportunity as an activity that we can become highly skilled for. And that's why birthing better skills developed in the early 1970s. Is that a lot of families who were using Grantley Dick Reed, Lamaze, the Bradley method, some of them it worked well and others it didn't work well. And families had lots of questions. And so together we answered those questions by finding skills to answer them. They were called our gaps. So for example, if we had pain in our back or pain in our hip, or our baby didn't come into the pelvis, or it's delayed at second stage, or we ended up with a cesarean, we filled those gaps with effective skills. Sadly, because skills were dismissed from the 70s onward, there's been very little evolution of skills, and that's a problem. And all of the skills-based methods, with the exception of Birthing Better, still focus on those three goals, whether it's hypno-birthing, hypno-baby, calm birth, birthing within, active birth. They all are focused on you achieving a natural birth. Great, use those skills. And if your natural birth unfolds as you want, you will have enriched that birth by being skilled. If it doesn't unfold, keep using those skills. Keep using those skills. Keep using them, because this is your baby's birth. You're not going to be able to do it again tomorrow. Don't miss an opportunity to effectively and with empowerment birth your baby moment to moment, breath by breath, using skills. You will never regret it. You'll always feel empowered by that experience, even if you hated every moment of it, even if everybody was rude to you, even if you had lots of interventions, doesn't matter. Skills are the answer to how to heal this mummy wars in childbirth. Instead of talking about the type of birth we had and the type of birth you didn't have, we will talk about how effectively we use skills. And you know what? By becoming skilled, we pass that on to the future generation, so that 7 generations in the future, we will become more skilled at being able to birth our baby. Will this achieve more natural births, less medical care? That's not the point. The point is to birth our babies effectively. See you again. Bye-bye.